Hello, and welcome to my channel. My name is Jonathan Cohn, and today I will be reviewing the Star Trek Next Generation novel, Immortal Coil, by Jeffrey Lang. This was a book written in 2002, released in February of 2002. So this was a book written just before Star Trek Nemesis came out. This is a novel that focuses on data and AI in general. And if you like data or like AI stories with androids and robots and all that stuff, you're going to love this book. To begin my review, I will first say that Jeffrey Lang did a lot of things really good in this book. And unfortunately, he did a lot of things really poorly. And so this is very much a mixed review. I usually try to stay pretty positive on this channel, but I can't be completely positive on this one because I do think the book suffered quite a bit. To begin with the positives, one of the positives of this book, as mentioned, was the handling of data. Data takes center stage in this book, and he really shines. You really get a look into his psyche, as well as a look into what makes an android an android. Why is it so important that he's so unique? He identifies well with Geordi, who's his good friend, and he's friends with Picard and Riker, but you don't really understand why he feels alone until you read this book, and that they really handled that well. This book also handles his relationship with another character, Ray McAdams, very well. I loved their chemistry. I loved the kind of romantic tension that the two of them had throughout the novel, and there was a lot of humor in this book that really worked well, particularly between Data and Ray. So I liked the way that they were handled. And another thing that I really liked in this book was the connections to the greater Star Trek universe. Star Trek authors love to put in their Easter eggs, their references, their tie-ins, because there's literally a tie-in book. Well, this book, Jeffrey Lang goes above and beyond in his references, and so he references a ton of TOS episodes and TNG episodes, and if it has anything to do with AI, he's probably going to mention it here. And I don't really watch that many episodes of the TV show, so I didn't know those references, but Lang explains them in such a way that you don't have to know them, and you still can appreciate them. If you're new to Star Trek, this will still be a good novel, you just won't appreciate all the references. But if you are a big Star Trek nerd, you're going to love this book for all the references that are in it. Going into some of the negatives I had with this book, biggest negative I had was the villains. This book, the first 2/3 of it sets up a certain character to be the villain. And I was excited because I thought that character would serve well as the villain. And then in the final act of the book, it turns out that this character is not the villain, and they go with kind of what I'll call generic bad guys. And I was really disappointed that they went in that direction because I was really excited about the first villain. And so I thought that the last act had traditional TNG action, had lots of space battles, and oh my goodness, we only have a certain amount of time, and let's come up with some science way to get out of this situation. And it worked well if it was on a TNG episode, but for a book, it felt lackluster. It felt like they were writing, like he was writing a long script for an episode instead of a novel. And sometimes I like it when they write a script for an episode, because some scripts for episodes translate well back and forth. This one doesn't. It doesn't translate well into a novel, especially that last act. Another thing that I think this book suffers from is pacing. The first third of the book is incredibly slow, and then the middle third has some big moments, but is still incredibly slow, and it isn't until the end of the book that it really ramps up. I think that the book would have been better if we had seen some of the characters in the book, like Bruce Maddox and some other characters, if we had seen a scene with them that serves as the inciting incident in the beginning of the book, instead of our main heroes hearing about it secondhand. If we had seen that event happen, I think it would have worked much better, and it would have hooked the audience. The hook of this book, the prologue essentially. Each part has like a prologue essentially, and the prologue in the first part really doesn't hook the way it's meant to. It totally makes sense why Jeffrey Lang and his editor Marco Palmieri would choose this hook. It doesn't work here, and so that's my another of my big issues with the book. Going into some other aspects of the book, there are some characters who gets into some unique situations, which I appreciated. One of those characters was Deanna Troi. We see her serve as being in charge of the Enterprise at one point in this book. There's a reason why she's in charge of the Enterprise, and a battle ensues, and she has to give out battle commands. And I know that there are some Litverse books that deal with her in charge, but they're really, from what I remember on screen, there's not much of Deanna Troi taking the lead, and I really appreciated seeing her in charge and seeing her doing battle tactics. It felt like a nice change of pace. It was a way for her to have a new role. Then you had someone like Beverly Crusher, who has always been underserved in the TV show and in the novels. She's always been underserved. They just stick her in sickbay and just don't do anything with her, and they, up until later in the continuity, they only hint at a flirtation between her and Picard, and so she really gets the short end of the stick. But in this book, they get her out of sickbay and instead send her to the infirmary on the planet where this book takes place. And I really appreciated that, because we got to see her in essentially a sickbay that's not her own, and she's trying to figure out how it all works, and she's trying to help this one specific patient while at the same time trying to help out wherever she can elsewhere, and also just learn her new surroundings. And so she didn't get a lot of page time, but when she was on this page, she was utilized really well. And so I really like that her and Deanna Troi, who I think are the two least utilized characters, other than maybe Geordi LaForge, those two are the least utilized, and they got a lot of time in this book. One thing I'll say is that this book is not entirely clear on the continuity. This book, I expected, because of when it came out, that it would be just before Nemesis. In reality, when I looked it up, it looked like the book occurred just after the events of Star Trek, the 7th movie, Generations. And I get why they went there, because there's some stuff that happens in this book that works, and actually works to lead up to First Contact with some of Data's lines, some of Data's characterizations. But at the same time, I think that this book serves really well if you had put it in the Nemesis time, near Nemesis, because I think this book does Data better than Nemesis did. I don't think that's a controversial statement. So there was a bit ambiguity on the timeline that I didn't think was great, but still, that was a minor issue. So overall, I had a ton of stuff that I loved about the book, including some of the characterization, some of the unique aspects of the book, as well as the premise. But it also had some very weak pacing, some weak villains, and a weak hook to the book. So overall, I give this book a 6 out of 10. It was good. I don't think it was a bad book by any means, but I know Star Trek can do better. I know Jeffrey Lang can do better with his books. I've read one other Jeffrey Lang book. It was a Voyager string theory book, which I quite enjoyed. I don't think it was amazing, but enjoyed that book. So I am very curious to read other Star Trek novels. I am reading this one in preparation of reading the Cold Equations trilogy, as well as Jeffrey Lang's other novel, The Light Fantastic, which is like a sequel. It was written 12 years later. So if you've read this book, let me know what your thoughts are. Comment down below and tell me, did you love the book? Did you hate the book? Were you indifferent? Are there books that you think tell this type of a story but better? Let me know all that down in the comments. Please subscribe to the channel to see more videos, Star Trek and otherwise. And until next time, I'm Jonathan, and thank you for watching.